Hello class. Today we're going to be looking at slope. Now slope's going to take 2 days in order to cover it. So today is our curriculum review of slope. This is going to be part 3 and slope is going to be part 3 and part 4. All right. So I got a question for you about slope. It says, how do you find the slope and the y-intercept? Well, there's 4 ways that you can do it. You can do it from an equation, from a graph, from a T-chart, and from 2 points that lie on a line. Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the first 3 parts, from an equation, from a graph, and from a T-chart. So from an equation, how do you find slope and y-intercept? Well, this is known as y equals mx plus b format. So if you remember, on your formula chart, you've got that formula. Y is equal to mx plus b, where this m value represents the slope of the line. So in this particular case, that's this 3. It's called the coefficient. It's the number that's with our variable. That is always going to tell us the slope of our line. Now this slope is actually going to be in the form of a fraction, because we know that slope is rise over run, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes. Okay. Now this b value, we know that the b value is our y-intercept, and that's this number right here, the 5. And this is the value that when our graph crosses the y-axis, it's going to cross the y-axis, or they'll do a y-intercept at 5. So this one's going to cross at positive 5 on a graph. Okay? So that's what how we find everything on an equation. Slope is our value that's with our x, and the y-intercept is the number that stands alone. It is our constant. Okay? So now, what about from a graph? Well, from a graph, we've got 2 things, okay? We've got the y-intercept. We'll talk about it first. And if you remember correctly, anytime you've seen a graph, I've always asked you to find the y-intercept first. And that is going to be the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So in this particular one, our y-intercept is at -2, because that's where it crosses the y-axis. Now our slope, which is our m value, is always found by doing rise over run. If we look at a graph going from left to right, okay, you always have to look at the graph going from a left point to a right point. So in this one, if we were to want to write the equation of this particular line, we would have y is equal to blank x plus blank. Okay, so the first thing I ask you to look for is this y-intercept, and we just said that it was going to be at -2. So we would write a -2 in that spot. And now we go from this point, the left point, to the right point, and we do our rise over run. Well, in this particular one, it's not going to do a rise, it's a fall. So that tells me that the slope value is going to be negative. So it's going to fall 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values. So that's going to be a -6 over, and then we do 1, 2, 3. Over 3. So we got -6 over 3. Now we know that's not going to be that's not in simplest form, so we actually do the division. -6 divided by 3 gives me -2x plus -2, or you could do this as a -2. And that would be the equation of our line, and we found that by using the graph. Okay, the third way of finding slope is from a T-chart. Okay, now from a T-chart, we're going to first look for our slope, and our slope is you divide the change on the right side of your T-chart by the change on the left side of the T-chart. Now if you remember correctly, what that means is that's the delta y divided by the delta x, where the delta, the triangle, means the change in, or the change on. Okay, so in this one is the change on the right side, which is the y side, divided by the change on the left side, which is our x value. So that's how we find our slope. Now for the y-intercept, you're going to look in your T-chart and you're going to find the y value when x is 0. Okay? So sometimes it's not there, so sometimes you may have to find the slope and then do some math to calculate the y-intercept. So let's see if we can practice finding slope and y-intercept from a T-chart. So here's a T-chart. So the first thing I've asked you to do on this is to find your pattern. Okay? So you find your pattern over here on the right-hand side, and this one is increasing by 2. And we look at our pattern on the left, it's increasing by 1. So if we take our 2 and we divide it by 1, 2 divided by 1 is our slope. So 2 divided by 1 is 2. So that is our slope value. Okay. Now we look for our y-intercept. Okay, we're going to look for the y value when x is 0. So in this particular one, we do actually have a 0 value. Okay, so this coordinate right here becomes our y-intercept. So here's our y value of -4. Now, if that 0 value is not found, then sometimes you either have to go find it by continuing the T-chart, or once you find slope, you can then plug a value in order to find what our y-intercept would be. Okay, now if I know my slope and I know my y-intercept, I now can write my equation of y is equal to, and now our blank x plus blank, our slope value is going to go right here by the x. It is our coefficient. Okay, and then our y-intercept value will go in the b spot. So our expression or our equation is 2x plus -4 for this particular T-chart. Okay, now one way to check to make sure that's right is you take one of these slope values, or take one of these x values, not the slope value, but one of these x values, and you plug it in and see if it actually works. So if we were to take this -2 and we plug it in, 2 times -2 is going to give me a -4, plus another -4 would give me -8. And there's my -8 value right there. And that's one way you could find the y-intercept value if it's not found in your T-chart, is you take one of your x values and you plug it in and find out what do I need to put here in order to get this y value as an answer. Okay? So what I'd like for you to do, now that we've kind of reviewed the 3 parts of slope, or the 3 ways of finding slope today, from an equation, from a graph, and from a T-chart, I would like for you to go to this link right here, or go to Google Classroom, and you can follow the link as well, and you're going to answer 2 questions for me. The questions are very simple. Okay, first question is, what is the slope of the line graph below? So you're just trying to find slope from a graph. And then the second question is using the graph below, answer this question. It says, which equation has the same y-intercept as the line in the graph and the slope that is the opposite of the slope in the graph? Okay, so this one's kind of tricky. So you look at this one right here, and you're going to find the equation that would make this line. But then it asks, which equation has the same y-intercept as the line in the graph and a slope that is opposite of the slope in the graph? So opposite means that if the answer is positive, then you give me a negative number. If it's negative, then you give me a positive number. Okay, so this will be interesting to see if you can figure this one out. Okay, so until next time, hope everybody's doing okay. So send me an email if I need to do anything for you, or if these videos aren't working for you or whatever. So just let me know how things are going. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.